have pretty much a full house. So welcome to the Planning Committee meeting Wednesday the 19th of October, starting at with the announcement proper at the please can I remind all participants that this meeting will be live streamed and the recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? Sorry if my dog does interrupt us. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if they can be seen on screen, or use the raise hand or chat function on the banner thing. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let either myself or the Democratic officer know. If they have a webcam, they should try turning this off, as this will help with broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so they can at least be heard and be heard. So welcome to all committee members, fellow councillors and registered public speakers and officers, and on to the first agenda item, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
None providing me, Chair. It's just Councillor Gilligan that's not joined us, so I don't know if anyone's heard from Councillor Gilligan.
She was intending to join us, but she may just be either having difficulties or be late. Just see if there's anything on. Yeah, if you would please, Amy, that would be helpful. Thank you very much. All right, minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of September. Can this be deemed a true record?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I see Anthony and Sandra both have their hands up. That's Councillor Ernest and Councillor Perks, sorry, being formal. Declarations of interest, though, I think there's going to be a lot of declarations of interest that this evening because of the model farm, particularly application. I must declare that I previously considered this matter as part of this committee the last time it was discussed, but I will look at it with fresh eyes today. Next, I see Ian, Councillor Johnson, you have your hands up next.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, with regards to 2019-00871 OUT Land at Model Farm, Port Road, Roos, I have previously voted on that matter at planning and also made statements in the press. However, I confirm that I will be looking at the item tonight with a fresh pair of eyes. Similarly, Chair, 2019-01031 RG3 Land to the north of Mice of Fun on Bonvilston. I've also voted on that previously at Planning Committee, but we'll be looking at that again with a fresh pair of eyes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian, and that reminds me, yes, I was part of that meeting, so I must again declare on 2019-01031 RG3 Land north of Mice of Fun for the same reason, with a fresh pair of eyes. Moving on, Sandra, Councillor Perks.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to declare on agenda item 8, 2019-000871 OUT. I've previously discussed and voted on this application as a member of Barry Town Council Planning in a meeting in February 22. So yes, I'd look at this with a fresh pair of eyes today. Thank you.
Next, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to declare on item 8 on 2019-00871 Land at Model Farm. I previously commented and was part of a Barry Town Council Planning Committee on the 15th of February 2022, but I will look at this with fresh eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Cave.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to declare on 2019-00871 and 2019-01031. Both these applications I've previously voted on at this planning committee, but I come with an open mind and a fresh pair of eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cave. Councillor Hodges.
Ditto, Chairman. The same two as previously mentioned by just about everyone. I have voted on them as is my want on the planning committee. Looking forward to debate on both, and I'll make up my mind accordingly. Anew. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. Who's next? Councillor Birch is next on my list.
Thank you. I wish to declare on the same planning applications as everybody else. I have looked at these in the planning committee and voted on them earlier this year. I will look at them afresh this time and take into consideration all the arguments before making my mind up.
And while you're on there, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I would like to repeat the same matter. Okay, so on
thank you.
item on 2019-00871 OU2 and item 2019-010 31 Reg 3, I've also stated the view and voted accordingly, but I will look at these applications of fresh pair of eyes. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Perry.
Good afternoon. Yeah, the same two planning applications and item 8, 2019-00871 out and screensaver. 2019-01031 RG3. I feel like King Charles now. Yeah, in my previous role as a community councillor, I have commented on these two planning applications, but I will be looking at them today through a fresh pair of eyes.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Williams, Eddie Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to, on item 8, declare an interest. I haven't previously been involved with these applications on planning committee. That's 2019 00871 outlined, 2019 and then 01031. Those two I've made a decision before, but I will look at this application following the debate, make a decision based on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Councillor Drake.
Yes, I too have looked at this on previous occasions on regards to item 8, which is 2019-00871 out, also 2019-01031 RG3. I have voted on this in the past, but I have not predetermined this application, and we'll be looking at it afresh and put it on record. I have not voiced my views or opinions in any other forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Councillor Charles, you have your hand up. I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yes, I'm not on this committee, but I was on Barry Town Council Committee. I wish to speak this evening, and therefore I didn't know whether I should declare an interest in agenda item 8 or not.
I don't think it's necessary, as you're not a member of the committee and have no voting.
Sorry,
right.
I think it's probably best if Councillor Charles did declare an interest.
Do you think
Better
so?
to be
Okay, Gareth,
safe than
carry on.
sorry. Okay, thank you, Neil. Thank you, Gareth. Then I declare
Thank
an
you, Gareth.
interest on agenda item 8. I have spoken on Barry Town Council Planning Committee before on this, and I will be looking at it freshly and listening to the debate this evening, but I will be speaking. Thank
which
you.
Items? Can you
Agenda
clarify
item
which
8.
items?
Agenda item
agenda
8.
item 8. There are three applications under agenda
Model
item
farm.
8. Is it Model Farm or Land to the North of Mice of Vernon? Just Model Farm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Right, moving on. Unless there are more declarations. No. Moving on then. Agenda item 4. Building regulation applications and other building control matters determined by the head of regeneration and planning under delegated powers. Can we have someone to move and note? Marcus, you've got your hand up.
Chair, just wanted to add for clarity that the AC, the definitions to those codes, AC is quite correctly approved with conditions. A is accepted and AW is accepted as well. I don't know the difference between the two, but in the system, the computer system, they're both accepted or approved. So just wanted to clarify that they are under the heading building regulation applications pass. So all of those AC, A and AW are all deemed to be essentially approvals or accepted applications.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Perhaps we could just have that as a brief key at the start of the start of that section in future, as we do with the next section, section 5, which we're moving on to. Section 5, planning applications determined by the head of regeneration and planning. Can we please note this? I see no hands contrary to that. In that case, we'll move on. Appeals. We do have appeals this evening. That'll be Ian, yes?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's one appeal reported as being determined in the last period. It relates to a proposal to increase the height of a building at 41 Ludlow Street in Penarth, and including external alterations to the facades and changing the use from office to ground floor office and 5 flats above. The application was refused for reasons relating to impact on neighbours and living conditions, impact on the appearance and character of the area, and a relative absence of amenity space. The planning inspector who dealt with the appeal felt that the development and the increasing in height in particular wouldn't be harmful to the character of the building or the character of the area, so he didn't concur with us on that issue. He did, however, concur that the development would have a harmful effect on the outlook and living conditions of neighbouring properties. He also concluded that the development itself, the accommodation wouldn't be adequate in terms of the outlook for occupiers of the proposed flats. This is a similar issue to the one that was raised in the appeal at the White House not long ago, where an inspector wasn't happy that a single kind of fixed obscurely glazed window serving a bedroom was adequate living conditions, notwithstanding what other windows might be serving the property. So he felt that there was an adverse impact on living conditions for neighbours and proposed occupiers. And finally, he agreed with the council in respect of the concerns about the absence of amenity space. In the appeal, it's pretty worth noting as a general point, in the appeal, the appellant sought to argue that the proximity of local parks could compensate for a shortfall in private amenity space. The inspector didn't agree, and this is an issue that has come up in appeals over time, where there's a distinction made between the functionality of private amenity space and the functionality of a kind of a park. So we don't generally treat the two as being the same. So yeah, the appeal was dismissed on those grounds.
Thanks for that, Ian. Yeah, you can't hang your washing out in the local park. Right, moving on, we come to trees. Item 7, trees, delegated list. I think these are self-evident as well. Anyone want to raise comment? No. In that case, moving on to the meat of the evening, which is the planning applications. First item on this agenda is 2019/00871/OUT. Land Model Farm Port Road, Roos. Now, I've got a bit of an announcement to start with. An issue over an issue has been raised by late regs. Where are we? It's there. I've got it written in 2 places. Right. We've received representation that queried the issue that some of the reports informing that this application may not be within date, and we are asking the applicants to review these reports on whether they need to be updated. So we propose deferring this from this evening until these reports are confirmed. Any comments, any observations? In that case, I move that we defer this matter this evening.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Perks. Any comments? No, I see no hands up. I see no comments. Can I then speak to the members of the public and others who were going to speak to this matter, and councillors who were going to speak to this matter, as this is now deferred to a future meeting for when these reports are clarified? We will keep you informed when it's coming up. We'll let you know if you still want to speak. It will give you the opportunity. You will be given the opportunity as well to consider and the time, along with everybody else, to consider the new reports and any variations that there are as you may wish to adapt what you wanted to say. But thank you for your interest this evening. But unfortunately, we're not going to be taking your comments or anything like that now. We'd like to save them for the meeting when the matter comes up again. Okay, thank you very much. We will then move on to the next matter, which is 2019/01031/RG3, land to the north of Myservin and Bonvilston. And I think Stephen, you're introduced. No, James, you want to?
James.
We need James to comment first. Yeah, James to comment first, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There are just a few points to raise further to this matter's previous appearance at committee. During that committee, it was stated that there was a potential for an appeal to be raised should the matter be refused. So this is just a statement to confirm that the council as applicant would be unable to lodge an appeal against the decision of the committee to refuse the matter by virtue of the Town and Country Planning General Regulations. It would also be the case, therefore, that the council could not seek costs in the event that the planning application was refused and or that a successful appeal was made. Furthermore, at the previous hearing of this matter, during the debate, Councillor Cave indicated that she would like to remove refusal of the application for the reason that the application was unneighbourly because it took away land currently used as recreation space. At that meeting, it was indicated by officers that this was not a valid reason for refusal. However, it should be clarified that this could be a valid reason for refusal, but it's also noted that officers reserve the right to comment on their consideration of the weight that should be given to any reasons that are put forward for refusals in respect of the overall planning balance. Further guidance on that is set out in the Development Management Manual from Welsh Government. Thank you.
Thank you for that, James. We do have one speaker on this, so I'll let Stephen introduce it. And when Stephen Butler, when you've introduced it, I will call in Mr. Freegard, Andrew Freegard.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to build on what James has said, and for the benefit of perhaps some of the members that some of the newer members, just in terms of background again. So the application was actually first presented to Planning Committee at the 1st of September 21. At that time, the application was deferred for the applicants to consider submitting alternative proposals to address the members' concerns, particularly in relation to the impact on the open space, and or for members to vote against the approval. So prior to the 1st September 21 committee, the application was reported to the 15th of July committee 2020. Where at the time it was also deferred due to the ongoing Village Green application, which was submitted. The view was to obviously wait until the outcome of the Village Green application had been resolved. So I think Ian is sharing the plans. Hopefully I'll just pop up in front of you. So as it says in the report, so this application is submitted by the Housing and Building Services Department to the Vale of Glamorgan Council. So it's a full application which has now been amended to provide 8 affordable units with associated works including improvements to adopted highway, hard and soft landscaping. So as I said, the proposal that have been amended, reducing the scheme from 10 to 8. As part of that, a pair of semi-detached dwellings has been removed, which is on the western side of the site, together with parking spaces and also reduction in the size of the turning head to retain more green space. So in detail, we've got 8 affordable units. 6 of them are going to be 1-bed, 2-person flats. And then the pair of semis comprises of 2-bed units, which will accommodate 4 people. They are two. I'm not sure what's happened with the plans. Let me just share mine. Second.
I've shared them, Steve.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
I
Marcus.
was sharing.
I've shared it from the report.
Oh, thanks, Marcus. So, as Marcus has shown there, which I think is probably the most pertinent page of the report, is a comparison between the current scheme, which is at the bottom, and the previous scheme, which is at the top. So what that shows is that the 2 semis have been removed. So again, there's been you could argue there's been a benefit in terms of retaining more of the probably key area of the open space to the western side of the site. Obviously, from an officer's point of view, that is at the loss of 2 much needed affordable units, but nevertheless, the applicant has looked at this long and hard, and they've chosen to go down the route of revising the scheme, and they think they've kind of hit the appropriate balance really of delivering a meaningful development whilst also retaining as much of the open space as they can. Everything in terms of the turning head has really been squeezed. We've lost the that small section of footway. Obviously, the turning head has been reduced. The parking area has been reduced. And more than that, say the original scheme would have had fencing along the western boundary with the road. Obviously, that's gone now, and there's what the benefit of the scheme is. You've got that strong continuation of the open space from south to north. So where the actual development is largely based is more around the area of the where the former garages were, and the slabs are still standing, together with the existing hard standing areas. So let's say the better part of the open space is now being retained, and the more utilitarian part of the garage complex with the grass surrounding, that's really where the focus of the development now lies. So I won't go into any more. I'm sure there'll be plenty of debate, so I'm happy to pass back to you now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Right, we need to bring in the speaker, Mr. Andrew Freegard. Can I invite you in? You will have 3 minutes. There you go. You've got 3 minutes as usual, Andrew, starting when you start speaking, and our Democratic Services Officer will give us a 1 minute warning when you are approaching your time. Start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair. For those members who don't know me, my name is Andrew Freegard, and I'm the Operational Manager for Housing Development within the Housing and Building Services Department of the Vale of Glamorgan Council. So Stephen has given history, but generally at the Planning Committee meeting on the 1st of September 2021, members elected to defer their decision in relation to the application for the scheme comprising 10 units of accommodation on the site, in order to allow the applicant, being Housing and Building Services, to resubmit an amended scheme that will hopefully address members' concerns. So Housing and Building Services amended and revised the scheme at Maes y Ffynnon, and will now seek to deliver 8 much needed new council homes within the St Nicholas and Llancarvan ward, comprising of 2 2-bedroom houses and 6 1-bedroom apartments, 2 of which will be for applicants over 50 years of age. After much consideration and a number of feasibility studies, it's been decided to submit the scheme, an amended scheme for 8 units, as fewer units would render the scheme unviable in terms of general economies of scale. The scheme is being designed to comply with Welsh Development Quality Requirements 2021, Lifetime Home Standards, Secured by Design Standards, and RNIB Visibly Better Standards, and will be delivered using modern methods of construction, primarily using a precision-made factory structurally insulated panelised system. Modern methods of construction will ensure that the construction period is significantly reduced with less disruption to the existing residents. Also, using a modern methods of construction fabric first approach will ensure that the scheme achieves an energy efficiency rating of EPCA or SAP 92, and will be off the gas grid, utilising a high energy electric heating, electric, air, water, air source water heater supported by infrared heating panels. New homes will also benefit from solar PV. The emission of the pair of two-bedroom houses from the western side of the original scheme, together with the associated parking spaces and the reduction in the size of the turning head, will release an additional 300 square metres of open space and eliminate the need to remove at least 7 good quality trees, which is certainly an improvement of the original scheme. The scheme benefits from a current SAB approval, and allocations to the scheme from the Homes for You waiting list will be made in accordance with the local lettings policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you hang on a second to see if there are any points of clarification that anybody wants to raise. Councillor Champion, is this a point of clarification?
Yes. Have you spoken to Ian Robertson since our site visit this morning?
Yes, I've spoken to Stephen Butler on two points of interest, which we certainly accommodate within delivering the scheme should we get a favourable planning outcome.
Thank you, Charles.
Stephen, you mean?
No, Charles.
Sorry, I'm happy to discuss those discussions as part of the wider debate.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Charles, you happy with that? Yes. Right then,
Yeah.
Councillor. Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Perry. You have your hand up.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. The first one is there's obviously a shared surface in front of these houses, and I'm wondering how a guide dog would navigate that space from the footway across to a front door.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure that's actually a point of clarification in this.
I think the question. I think that question should be you should be able to answer that question.
Would you mind answering that question, Mr. Freegard?
No. Obviously, shared surfaces are contentious, but as I said quite clearly and quite rightly, Councillor Perry points out some disadvantages, but there are also benefits in terms of a more integrated public footway system, allows for the sense of circulation, and benefits other members with sort of pertinent disabilities then as well. But we obviously design our highway systems and the footway networks in accordance with our highways colleagues, and obviously with the manual for streets in mind. And obviously the proposals were met favourably by colleagues in highways.
Did they mention?
No.
No.
You said you had. Yeah, no, you're not being silenced. You said you had 2 points of clarification. You've had an answer to that one. It's not time for debate.
Okay. Well, I thought it was a meeting for debate or discussion. Because the other question was the part B of the first question was you're putting in over 55 in the first floor flat. I know my great grandmother many years ago was put in a first floor flat, and that's where she stayed because she couldn't get down the stairs. Now, obviously, there are ways of moving people in the modern day, but was that taken into consideration when making a flat for over 55s a first floor rather than having 2 flats that are first floor for over 55s?
Yeah, obviously we were looking at the best composition for the scheme at the time, based on local housing need. In determining the use for 55s, not all 55s over 55. I'm 55 and don't class myself as potentially decrepit yet, but obviously these units are lifetime homes, and in designing these we account for that eventuality should it happen, and there are it's future proofed, so there is a provision within the stairway for a stair lift to be fitted in the future if required. So we have a fused spur, and we have reinforced mattresses to take the weight of a stair lift should it be needed. But as I said, the important thing is that these are lifetime homes, properties, and the eventualities are considered.
Yeah, and I mean, were people with disabilities in mobility, in cognitive function, and sensory impairment, how were they involved in this scheme?
How were they involved? As I said, it is that we base our designs on Welsh Government standards, which are WDQR 2021 and lifetime homes, which is a catch-all and is designed to allow an applicant to reside in a property from a young age to an old age. But as I said, the individual characteristics of anybody with a particular disability are more widely considered rather than a specific group of people.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. And then
thank you, Councillor Perry.
The other question is, I keep being told this is much needed. Obviously, I've now got a new hat on, so I.
This isn't a matter. No, this isn't a
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
for
So this
Councillor.
is very important, Chair.
Mr. Freegard.
This is a question.
This is not. This is a question for the committee and for the debate for the officers, not a point of clarification.
Okay, well, I've got a question.
No, it's points of
no,
it's points of clarification. No, you can't.
Yeah, but this,
it's points.
We've had
no,
no
you
opportunity
can't.
to,
No,
to question
you can't.
this at all.
This is points of clarification, not points
Okay,
of
can
questioning.
you just clarify that in my ward, you currently have 4 properties that are empty, and they've been empty between 4 and 8 years, and yet you're saying these are much needed. Now, if these were much needed, wouldn't it be best practice to first get those 4 properties in my ward?
No, Ian, you can't. This isn't a matter for Mr. Freegard. This is a matter for the committee and a matter for our officers and for housing.
Okay.
It's not a matter for Mr. Freegard, so no, you can't. Moving on. Sandra, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Sorry, I thought we were moving on to the debate. I wasn't going to ask Mr.
No,
Freegard anything. Sorry.
No,
sorry, Chair.
No, I now want to go back to Stephen Butler for matters arising as well, please.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, apologies for missing the matters rising.
Oh,
So
sorry, hang on. Before we do that, Mr. Freegard, thank you very much for your time, and we'll no doubt see you again.
Yes, you will.
Right, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair.
Stephen.
Okay, so we've had 3 matters rising notes on this application. First from Councillor Perry, second from St Nicholas and Bomston Community Council. Just to clarify that the comments are made from Councillor Perry. Obviously, they've been circulated to members and are available to view. St Nicholas and Bomston Community Council have objected, setting out various reasons. We've had a third letter from a neighbour, Charlotte Halsey, also objecting to the application on the loss of open space. Just as a consequence of these matters arising notes, one of the concerns raised was hours of operation. We have obviously looked at that, and we have slightly revised the hours of working on a Saturday. I think the report specifies pretty much all day working on a Saturday, but we've looked at SRS's comments, and they suggested hours between 8 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock. So there is a recommendation that condition 5 is amended along those lines as circulated in the in the matters rising notes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Stephen. Right, we can now move on to the debate, and Ian Perry, as local member, you can start if you have anything to contribute. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Right, here we go. Yeah, obviously I'm very concerned about this, given I've got 4 properties in my ward that have been empty for between 4 and 8 years, and nothing has happened. I do have other properties owned by the Vale Council that are in a state of disrepair and heading that way. And so I think the planning committee should know that if this applicant is so keen that we need these houses so desperately, they should get their own house in order first and bring those houses back into use, because we have far too many empty houses in the Vale of Glamorgan. And the fact that the Vale of Glamorgan own 4 in my ward, and I'm told others elsewhere, is quite outrageous. So really, they shouldn't be saying much needed until they get those houses back in the market. I've obviously raised the public sector equality duty. I'm not convinced yet, because I've not seen any evidence of sort of any evidence that people with additional needs have been considered. I'm dubious on the Section 6 duty due to the close proximity of the New Pond. I know the ecology officer did object to this, and I haven't seen anything that really mitigates that. There's obviously the loss of the mature trees, there's a whole row of trees that are going to go. I remember what Councillor Hodges said at the previous meeting regarding perhaps continuing the row rather than coming around at a 90-degree angle, and unfortunately his advice hasn't been followed. So public open space in my ward is very restricted. All but one of my community wards have got an under provision of public open space. Bombleston has an under provision, and I've shown the figures which the Community Council published a year ago, and which the Vale Council maintained hasn't been published. So it's a big shame that we're still looking at Wenvo's figures, because Wenvo does benefit from some sports facilities, which are no longer part of my ward, and anyhow Wenvo is a considerable distance away from Bombleston. So you've got a community there which has insufficient public open space, which goes against Section 6 of Planning Policy Wales, which says we should be protecting it, particularly where there is a shortage. And it seems almost like the people of Bombleston are expected to go to the Physic Garden in Cowbridge or Butte Park in Cardiff if they want public open space. The open space and the mature trees around Miser Funland contributes to a sense of place. They are very, very important to the health and well-being of residents. And relying on the provision for the new development, which is Fleecehold, and controversial and hasn't yet been built. We're 5 years into that scheme, and phase 2 isn't going to start until the end, autumn 2023 at the earliest. And we've all seen the economic situation. We've all seen the potential of house prices going down and building costs going up. So the public open space that's promised at Bombleston, the new stuff, is phase 3. So if phase 2 isn't going to start until 6 years after phase 1, when will phase 3 start? Will it ever be delivered? Because there are plenty of examples where housing schemes aren't actually finished. And we did have a comment at a previous meeting where we have to look at the here and now, not what might happen in the future. So that public open space that this development is relying on isn't there now. And I think it would be inconsistent and wrong for us to consider that it should be there and make determination based on the possibility of public open space being provided by that development. We did also turn down the opportunity for 3 affordable houses at the last meeting in Bombleston, and there are potentially other socially rented houses coming, but that is in the future. We can't take that into consideration today. But these sort of things are in the pipeline, and therefore, if we can't take into consideration new houses that are going to be coming, we should be taking into consideration the public open space that may or may not appear at Cotterell Gardens.
Councillor Perry, you seem to be rambling now. Can we get to a point?
I thought I just finished, and then you interrupt. That's why I put the pause. So those are my chief concerns here and now, and I will then let someone else continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Birch, you have your hands up. I'll come back to officers after we've got another to respond, after we've got some more comments. Councillor Birch.
Actually,
oh, sorry.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mark. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the comments so far from Councillor Perry. I just want to talk about other duties. We also got a social and economic duty as well. And really, we got a huge demand for social housing across the whole of Vale Glamorgan. I think at the moment, there's around about 6,000 people in total in Vale Glamorgan on the housing waiting list. I get letters and representations almost on a daily basis from people in dire need of housing. And I'm sure that all members get that in their own areas, in their own wards. And to be honest, this is a small development. This is not a very large development at all. And there's a huge need in Western Vale for affordable housing. Look at house prices in the Western Vale, they are exorbitantly high. Okay, we need to provide more and more social housing, not less. And really, we need to make a mark to encourage the sustainability of housing within the whole of the Vale Glamorgan to make it a viable place to live in. And that's why I am calling for this application. I'm calling to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Next on my list, Councillor Perks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to really sort of speak in support of this application after listening to the officer, you know, and I think he's answered a lot of the issues that people might have, you know, that these modern methods of construction, they're going to be built more quickly than would normally be. They actually meet the Welsh Government guidelines that are required, energy efficient. And also, if you look at in the report that we have, I think there's 355 people, who probably families there as well, who've actually asked to live within the area. I know it's a new area now, but Wenvo, Peterson Super Ely, and I think a bit of St Athan as well, if I'm not mistaken. I might have got the last one wrong. So, you know, there are people wanting to live there. Having a cursory look at Rightmove recently before I came to this meeting, the average price of cost of living in Bombleston is nearly £800,000 to buy a house. Now, if local people who are starting off in life or have, you know, sort of want a smaller place and want to live near family, this is only 8 properties. They couldn't afford, most people couldn't afford £800,000 to live near family, and they'll be offered generally, local housing is offered generally to the people who have a local connection first, and then it is offered to other people. So yes, I'm in support of these 8 houses. I think they're much needed, and we need more social housing, not less.
Thank you, Councillor Perks. Councillor Payne is next on my list.
Thank you, Chair. I would suggest that the main contribution to the health and well-being of people is to have a safe and secure home. And I echo Councillor Perks's comments around the price of houses in rural Vale. So you would have to have a local connection to be offered a property there. So I think the most important thing for residents is to have a safe and secure home. So we need more affordable housing, not less. So I would support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Cave.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say I agree with a lot of what's already been said, because I actually think what we need is balance. We need to be able to balance the needs of those people that we have already housed in the area with those needs of those that don't have housing. And it does seem that at the moment, the people that have already spoken are either on one side of a need or the other side of a need. And I don't think that's what we're actually being asked to do here. We're being asked as a committee to look at this planning application in its round. And that's about not being biased one way or the other. It's about looking at everybody's needs. And when I looked at the previous application, yes, I wasn't happy with it. When I look at this application, I'm not happy with it either. But one of the reasons I'm not happy with it, if you put up one of the pages, I think it's 149, what you'll be able to see is you'll be able to see an aerial view of the site. And what you see is from that aerial view, you see the existing housing, which was social housing. I believe it was built by the Forestry Commission. I might be wrong there, but it was certainly for, I can see Stephen's nodding. It was certainly...
Yeah, rural district housing, I think it's generically called, yeah.
Yeah, it was certainly affordable housing. And at that time, the standard for affordable housing was that there should be some green space. Certainly over time, you can see from the applications that come before this committee, open space, amenity space, as we spoke about earlier, has got smaller and smaller. And I was really pleased to hear that on appeal, you know, inspectors were actually noticing that amenity space should be a certain size and it shouldn't be a park. Now, when I go down and I look at this site, I did say previously it's a little green oasis, and it really is. And one of my major concerns is that we're trying to use the existing access for the access for the new houses. Now, I don't think it's necessary for us to use the existing access, because actually we could access this site further up the road. It might be technically more difficult, but I actually question, why is it that when the original housing was built, they could build a line of houses and fit far more people in than the housing that's being proposed for this site? Because actually what's being proposed, I think, is a really small amount of housing for the size of the site. And if we were actually to look at not using the existing site, first of all, we wouldn't lose some of those trees at the beginning of the site. We wouldn't lose that green oasis, which I spoke about. We wouldn't actually lose any of the width of the road. It would still stay as it was. So the people in those houses that were already built, they wouldn't lose that amenity. But what we would gain is we would gain at the top a far greater space, which actually I don't think would be such a loss to the people that were already there. You know, if we took away some trees at the beginning of that site, if you go further up the road, then we would possibly be able to get a row of terraced housing. And I'm not quite sure why we don't build terraced housing anymore, but you can see that that was the original. They are the original properties. They are terraced properties of sorts, and they've utilised this space far better. So, I'm trying very hard to do the best I can here to see both everybody's perspective here, both the people that already live there and the people that desperately need homes. And all I'm trying to do is help us as a committee make the right decisions for everybody. The picture you put on the screen now, I'm guessing, I don't know who's put it up there, that isn't the picture that I'm talking about. There is an aerial picture. I'll just try and find it. I think it's on, I found it earlier on. Here it is. It's on page 145. And it's quite a naive drawing, but you can see that what we're trying to do is we're trying to use the existing road system, which is very narrow, and it was only built to accommodate those existing properties with that green space at the front. I think you can see that a couple of the houses don't have as much garden space, so they're not similar in there. And I think that green space was left to accommodate those houses that didn't have as much green space. So I think if we were to, and I'm not a planner, and if I'm guiding us all in the wrong direction, I'm sure somebody will tell me. But I do think this is a site of equal size to the site that was already built on, and I don't think we're making the best use of it. So at the moment, unless somebody suggests that there can be some amendments to this, unfortunately, I can't agree with this application.
Right, thank you, Councillor Cave. I'll just bring in, before I ask you to reply to all this, Stephen, I'll just bring in Councillor Hodges as the final councillor who hasn't yet spoken to put their hand and has a hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. Yeah. First of all, can I say that when I saw this had come back to committee for tonight, I was quite surprised to see it was 13 months since we'd seen this previously. At the time, I was unhappy because not only did I feel that the projected road access and junction was too massive and taking out too much of the green space, but also the proposed housing units, as within the original plan, were disconnected from the original, the existing part of the street there. So I wasn't happy with that. Now I see now it's come back to us 13 months on, and apart from a small reduction and the fencing and God knows what else, and saving some trees, it's fundamentally the same plan. My objection at the time was the access being rather unwarranted use of and waste of public open space that could have been saved, protected, used, and appreciated. Now that concern hasn't gone. I still have that concern, and it surprises me that it's taken 13 months to come back with this minor change, which leaves us not that different from where I think a lot of the objections and concerns were all that time ago. I think that when I see applications from housing associations, private builders, whatever, we either like them or we don't like them, and we accept them or we refuse them. It's a shame when we have our own application internal of our own council that it can't be the best that it should be. We should be setting the standard here. We should be saying, if we can protect and promote an open space in what is a rural area, there's something wrong here. So I'm not convinced, but I will happily listen to the rest of the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Right, Stephen, would you like to?
Yeah, thanks. So this is a good
respond
point.
to all the comments
It's a good
so far.
time to come back. So I think taking most of the, even though there weren't specific questions, but so just on the issue of trees, etc. Let me just reshare my screen. And I believe some discussions did take place on site this morning. So obviously the scheme seeks to increase and widen the radii of the junction, and in doing so the scheme proposes to remove 3 trees which are protected trees. Obviously the reason for the widening, as members would have seen on the site this morning, is the fact that vehicles are overrunning the grass and damaging the verges, etc. We have since had a discussion with both the applicant and the highway engineer. We think these trees can be retained. We think that can be retained 2 ways. One is probably slightly tweaking the geometry of the access. And in fact, the highway engineer has almost suggested, not, within the last couple of hours, that certainly the change made on the sort of northern side of the junction for vehicles travelling to the north could probably be amended with a sort of asymmetrical junction. So there's the opportunity to tweak it and almost realign that junction, and in doing so, bring the new hard surface road widening away from the route protection area. And even if there's little change that can be made there, we still feel, with an appropriate condition and an appropriate method statement, etc., and how the excavation works are undertaken, that these trees can actually be retained. So if members are, depending on the voting officer, members are in favour of supporting the application, we would be recommending an additional condition in relation to the retention of these 3 trees, in addition to a revised scheme of the access, showing the changes made to the access to safeguard the route protection areas of these trees. So I would absolutely agree with everybody. Trees are very, very important, and open space is very, very important. Obviously, from the applicant's point of view, they feel that they've reached the best balance that they can. Lots of discussion has been made about balancing the needs. In this case, it's the needs of providing as much open space as possible, but equally by providing a meaningful amount of affordable housing. Just to pick up on Councillor Cave's suggestion in relation to an alternative access, I assume the probably suggestion would be to provide a new access at this point and then running a row of terraces along here. So we do look at alternatives, but in all honesty, subject to this change being made and these trees being retained, there's very little or hardly any physical alteration or impact on this existing open space. Whereas if we were to provide a new access here, there is a change in levels, quite a significant change in levels at the top of the site. This would mean retaining walls, and in order to achieve the required visibility, probably removal of more trees than is required at the bottom of the site. And whether or not it could ever be achieved without significant alterations and actual impact and harm on the open space. So in terms of minimising impact, officers feel it's absolutely the right decision to utilise existing access, which, say, subject to some changes to retain these trees. From the bottom end of the site, there'd be very, very little change to this junction. And in fact, by removing the overrun and the damaged verge, will probably, in terms of visual amenity, look a lot better. Just on the same point, I think Councillor Champion raised, which I said I would come back to, is currently there is a turning area within the site. Now this is the sort of legacy turning area in relation to the houses opposite and the former parking areas. A suggestion has been made whether or not this turning area could be retained. So at the moment, this is adopted as is the rest of the road. So officers would be, and we've spoken to the applicant as well on this matter, they would be happy to retain that. And again, the highway engineer has confirmed that there wouldn't be any particular conflict if this turning area were to be retained. Obviously, conversely, that would mean the loss of some of the open space that was going to be sort of balanced back into this turning area. But you know, if members did feel that the turning area was important, perhaps to provide, say, you know, this wouldn't be a parking area, this would just be part of the adopted highway, so we couldn't guarantee it could be used for parking. But if members did feel that this was an important part of the scheme to make it acceptable, we could certainly look to again putting a condition on saying, not, you know, notwithstanding the approved plans, that the turning area would have to be retained as existing as a public adopted highway. So just on going back to Councillor Perry's points, we did a very detailed matters arising note yesterday, focusing again on the loss of the open space and how much open space there is available locally, as in Bombleston, and also within the wider ward. You know, the report does obviously refer to Wenvo ward, which is how we base our open space assessments in the open space background paper. But what we have done, we've gone through all the figures which were provided by Councillor Perry, and we've worked out that within the newly created Blancarden and St Nicholas ward, that there would be an over provision. We accept there would be a shortfall in Bombleston itself, which there is limited open space in Bombleston, although it's worth noting it's not just this site that provides open space. As members would have seen this morning, as you turn in from the A48, there's a large area of open space to the right-hand side, which I think itself is about 860 odd square meters. So, you know, we're not losing, you know, there are other opportunities for use of open space, but I say this note does show that within the ward, there is an over provision, and that's actually excluding Duffering Gardens, of which half of it goes through the ward. So say officers are confident that ward-wise there is an over provision, but the report is correct in stating that there is deficiency in Bombleston, but again, on balance, it wouldn't result in an unacceptable deficiency of open space. Again, it's all about the planning balance, the number of affordable houses versus the amount of space lost. And what you've also got to look at is obviously the open space background paper is a kind of quantitative assessment. So it doesn't look at the quality of open space. It's merely just a line on a plan saying this is open space. But with the revisions that we've had through discussions with the agent, certainly the best part in terms of quality of open space and visual amenity as well is now being retained, where, as I said previously, the area where the existing slabs are and the circulation space for the vehicles, that's really where the main bulk of the development is going to take place. So what is being built on is of lesser quality now than the area which to the west, which is now being retained. I'm happy to answer some more questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, would I be able to just quickly come in on top of what Steve said there? This is just really quickly, just to add, because obviously Councillor Perry made the point around the types of housing, and I think Councillor Cave also raised the issue of why this particular design of housing was being selected. And it's important to note that modern building standards, in particular with regard to affordable housing, which is funded via Welsh Government funding, have to meet Welsh quality housing standards, and there are a number of reasons for that. But the design of this housing is in this form to meet Welsh quality housing standards. All housing that is now built by the council has to meet that standard, and so that means that it's very difficult to provide, firstly, long strings of terrace housing to meet those Welsh quality housing standards. It's very, very difficult to do that. It's much easier to do it in smaller blocks, which is why this has been designed in that way. And as we've said before, Councillor Perry referred to sort of very specific issues of disabilities and how they would access, but Welsh Quality Housing Standards is designed as an overarching standard which covers all of those issues. So I just wanted to point that out in terms of referring to the older design of properties which were probably built in very much the early part of the previous century, that those standards wouldn't have existed then. Welsh Quality Housing Standards control things like the size of rooms. They also can deal with things like the space available to residents of the properties as well in terms of external space. But these are designed to meet those new Welsh Quality Housing Standards. So I just wanted to clarify that matter.
Thank you, Marcus. If committee will just give me literally 5 seconds while I throw my dogs out because they're demanded to be fed. Hang on. Sorry about that. Right, we have Councillor Champion. You have your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Come on. The reason I was looking at that existing turning circle is that what's being built on is basically the old garages for that row of houses, and we're basically taking away some of the parking for those houses that don't actually have very much parking. They're sort of parking on the road as it is. So it's some recompense for those. And if you just took it out of being adopted as highway and just paint some white lines on it for parking bays, I would have thought that would be okay.
I think actually didn't. I mean, I'll leave Steve to come back on that after the others have spoken. I've still got Nick Hodges and Ian Perry with their hands up. Let's see what they have to say, and then you can reply to all three, please, Stephen. So, Nick first.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll digress for 5 seconds and then I'll go on.
Please don't.
Well, I will, because I'm disappointed about Model Farm not being suitable for coming to committee. And today we have this application, which is already being proposed after 13 months being away from committee, that an amendment or a new condition is being put in about that turning circle. I'd like to propose and move that we have deferment until we see those plans, and I'll move that.
And I'll second it.
Moving on then, Councillor Perry.
Yep, and just before I think we'll vote on that, which I would be supportive of, the piece of ground at the front of Miser Flunnen was mentioned, just to inform members that that is subject to significant road noise, which is supposed to be a priority action to be tackled, but that's been for 10 years. I also curious about why this development has solar panels on it and the larger development last week didn't have solar panels on it. But I think there's potentially now going to go to a vote, so I will let you get on with that.
Well, yeah. First of all, Councillor Wilson, I think it is, because I see him rather than Councillor Birch.
Yes, I've already moved for the proposal in my speech.
I don't think it was seconded. Other people supported it, but I don't remember you moving or I actually don't remember moving or seconding. Perhaps Democratic or someone can clarify.
I took the chair. Sorry, that Councillor Wilson supported, but I didn't indicate that he moved the officer's recommendations.
That's what I thought I heard. Right, Councillor Cowp, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was going to say I agree that it should be deferred, and I just wondered if the new when it comes back, the plans could include what happens to those 3 trees at the entrance as well as the parking area. Thank you.
I think that can be dealt with without deferral because it's to be conditioned.
Okay.
Which is what Stephen said earlier. If we condition, the plan is to add the extra condition about the trees and also an extra condition about the access to this application.
Like to see the plans,
to
Chairman.
this report.
Thank you, Chair.
And that it was going to go forward like that. Right, Sandra Perks, you've got your hand up, and then we'll come back to Steve Butler.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to ask why we would be deferring it and what the reason was for, but I think that's been sort of addressed already.
Right, thank you. Right, Eddie. Before we go back to Steve, Eddie Williams, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, there's just I've heard quite a bit of discussion now. I'm ready to move officers' recommendations.
I'll
Yeah,
second officers' recommendations.
unfortunately, we can't do that because the deferral has been moved.
Has it been seconded?
That has been moved and seconded, and we would then have to vote on that before we move, before we can move on to voting for or against the officers' recommendations.
Sorry,
So
can I just come back on just obviously this deferral issue? So
I was about to bring you in anyway, Stephen.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Sorry about that. So again, just on the point of trees, you know, this is a matter that would just be very simply a planning condition. It's not requiring any change to the scheme, unlike the sort of previous. The slight tweak in the change in the road would be something that would ordinarily even be covered by the standard highways condition, which requires further technical approval and details. And even, you know, within that, there's scope to. There is scope to tweak the road layout, etc. So, you know, this is absolutely a matter from our point of view that could be dealt with very, very simply by a planning condition. There's no doubt or confusion as to what the condition is. It will be that those trees will be retained and that appropriate measures are submitted to minimise the impact on those trees. So again, we feel this matter is a very, very simple one. And then again, in relation to Councillor Champion's comments in relation to that is slightly more complicated because it is adopted highway, and just by preventing, we would put a condition on saying that it wouldn't be extinguished and it wouldn't be landscaped, and therefore it would just be retained as existing, which is a turning area. Now, obviously, if people wish to park there, they can, but I don't think it's particularly safeguarded as a turning area. I guess the desire is that it would be used as parking and not safeguarded for. I mean, at the moment, that section of road doesn't have any restrictions, and people park on the one side. And equally, it's adopted highway. They don't have a right to park, but they can park, and equally they could park on that piece of land. So again, we feel that it would be very simple to condition that matter without it. That, you know, there would be nothing to bring back if it was to be deferred on that ground. The plan would come back and that little section would just be grey and that little label would be taken off. That would really be the only difference if the application were to be deferred.
Chair, just to add to what Steve said, there are many sort of turning heads like this across the Vale. Very few are restricted in terms of parking. They're there, which they're available either for parking or for turning, and they would have to have traffic regulation orders imposed on them if they were to be prevented for parking. In this particular instance, I would see no reason why one would be added, and it would be left as it is, as Steve has suggested, and it would be available for, in the same way as people parking on the street currently, it would be available for people to park alongside the pavement in that instance. So a condition would just say that it would be retained and not removed.
Right. So to clarify, we need to first of all vote on the deferral motion, but bear in mind that we do have these three now extra conditions which are to be added: re the trees, re the access, and re the turning head.
Yeah, plus condition 5 as well from the matters arising note. There
yes.
may also be because obviously this matter has been raised late today. There may be a consequential change to one or two other conditions just to make sure everything aligns and the plans align. But we're just talking about references to plans.
Those are just references to reference numbers to plans. Those are not changes.
They're consequential revisions to conditions as a result of. We've got to make sure everything ties up.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Well, we need to come to a vote then. Unless anybody wants to speak now against deferral, apart from me, I would move that we don't. I'll speak against deferral in that I don't think that it's necessary at this time. I think that with these extra conditions, we actually do know what's going on. I understand Nick Hodges' comments about wanting to see the plans, but the plans are as is with those new conditions, and it will not be a difference in conditions. So can I ask Gareth then please to take the vote?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is for deferring the application. Can I start with Councillor Burt? Are you for or against?
Against.
Okay, Councillor Bruce, are you for or against?
For.
Okay, Councillor Cave, are you for or against?
For.
Councillor Champion, are you for or against?
Against.
Okay, Councillor Cope, are you for or against?
For deferral.
Councillor Drake, are you for or against?
Against.
Councillor Ernest, are you for or against?
For the proposal.
No, can I
To
just
defer.
interrupt? Yeah, we're voting on whether to defer, Anthony. Are you for or against deferral?
I'm against deferral. Sorry.
Thank you.
Right.
Councillor Gilligan, are you for or against deferral?
Against.
Councillor Hodges, are you for or against?
For.
Councillor Johnson, are you for or against?
Obliged. For.
Councillor Payne, are you for or against?
Against deferral.
Councillor Perks, are you for or against?
Against deferral.
Councillor Perry, are you for or against deferral?
I'm for deferral.
Councillor Stallard, are you for or against deferral?
Yn erbyn, against.
Councillor Thomas, are you for or against?
I'm against.
Councillor Williams, are you for or against?
Against deferral.
And Councillor Wilson, are you for or against?
Against.
Okay, Chair, I make that 6 for and 11 against.
That's
that
what I make it
falls.
too. Thank you very much. Right, we now move then to a vote on the well, what we need is a motion and seconder for officers' recommendations, please.
Yeah, I think I've got my hand up. I will.
Well, you
move
have,
it-
yes.
Yeah, so I will move a motion that the planning committee stands by its previous resolution as
No,
of
you
the
either
meeting
move.
last September.
s-
Which was,
You're moving rejection of refusal.
I am, which is
I-
what the
Councillor
planning
William-
committee kept, the decision of the planning committee last time.
Chair, Councillor Williams moved officer's recommendation before
Yeah,
the previous one.
Yeah,
Does that stand?
so yeah, we'll stick with that. It has the same effect, Councillor Perry, as that the Eddie Williams motion of of moving officers' recommendations was seconded, and that now takes precedence. I forgot. Yes. What?
What? Is that me?
Why? Yes, Nick. Why hang on?
Chairman, I moved that we defer. That was defeated. We then move on to new business. The new business starts now. It doesn't start from a previous
Okay.
possible moving.
Okay.
I move that we refuse the application.
Okay, we can vote it that way. So we have a motion and seconder. I assume Councillor Perry and Councillor Hodges are both having moved and seconded. Now becomes the motion. We can either if we vote. If we reject refusal, then I assume we are accepting officers' recommendations. Or do we then have to vote for a third time? Can somebody clarify, James? James, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, just getting back on screen. Yeah, generally we have had it in the past where motions have been, you've had multiple motions and we take the first motion first. But generally you deal with one motion at a time. And then I suppose you deal with sort of the members who have their hands up in order from there, really.
Right. So I mean I have 3 hands up. I'm not sure what we're discussing at the moment. Can you please clarify, James? Are we discussing Councillor Williams's motion to support officers' recommendations, or are we discussing Councillor Perry and Hodges' motion to refuse?
It depends which you want to accept, I suppose, Chair. We've had it in the past where we have had previous positions in the past where opposite motions have been moved through the debate, and we just heard them in order. So I think that you have had a mover and a seconder for
which is what I
approval.
thought we had precedent for in anyway. In that case, we will go back to that, which is what I said in the first place. We will go back to Eddie Williams' motion, which was moved during the debate of support for officers' recommendations,
and I'd be happy to second it.
And it was seconded at the time.
Yeah, I seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Perks.
Yes.
Can I interrupt? I have to go back and speak to the community council.
No, we're going back.
Fine. This is a part. I mean,
Ian,
I have to go and explain to my community afterwards.
Now you're seconding it.
Deal with this afterwards. Can
well,
we go back
this is
to...
now. My residents might. I don't know how to explain this to them. I don't know how to explain the previous meeting or the one before that. How am I, as an elected member, expected to go back to my residents and explain this meeting?
You can explain
when people are voting, don't even know what they're voting
shut
on.
up and listen? Then you ask me
Excuse
a question,
the language, please.
and I will answer. Will you be quiet and listen? When you ask a question, the polite thing is then to stop and listen to the answer. Where you go back to explain to your constituents is normally when, as has happened before and as has been practice within this committee, where to and has just been explained by James, where multiple resolutions have been raised during debate, they are then taken in order. That has been practice. Councillor Hodges is quite right. Sometimes it has happened differently. But on this occasion, I think it's entirely appropriate to go this way. I see that Gareth has his hand up. Does he want to come in now?
Just come in, Chair. Whichever way you vote, if the motion is to reject and that is carried, then obviously it's rejected. If the vote is to accept the rejection, then obviously it's rejected, and that's it. Then there's no other motion to approve. So they both motions end up in the same outcome if the vote goes a certain way. So
absolutely,
natural justice is met either way. So I don't see the issue. If you vote in one way, you end up with the same vote in the second resolution. So
absolutely, I move progress. We will move on and vote.
But I got
now.
in first.
And we'll move on and vote now on officers' recommendations for or against officers' recommendations. It has the same effect. Stop shaking your heads. Gareth, can you take the vote, please?
Okay, Councillor Burt, are you for or against officers' recommendations?
In favour of officer recommendations.
Councillor Bruce, are you for or against officers' recommendations?
Against.
Councillor Cave, are you for or against officer recommendations?
Against.
Councillor Champion, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaup, are you for or against officer recommendations?
Against.
Thank you.
Councillor Drake, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For.
Councillor Ernest, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For.
Councillor Gilligan, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For.
Councillor Hodges, are you for or against officer recommendations?
Against.
Councillor Johnson, are you for or against officer recommendations?
And I'd have been against.
Councillor Payne, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For officers' recommendations.
Councillor Perks, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For officers' recommendations.
Councillor Perry, are you for or against officer recommendations?
I'm against officer recommendations.
Councillor Starlad, are you for or against officer recommendations?
Obliged. For.
Councillor Thomas, are you for or against?
I'm for.
Councillor Williams, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For officers' recommendations.
And Councillor Wilson, are you for or against officer recommendations?
For the recommendations.
Okay, Chair, that's 11 for and 6 against.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's carried. Moving on then to the last item on the agenda, which is Summerland Close Llandoch 2021-00012 full. And I think, Stephen, you're presenting this again.
I am indeed. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just starting off with the matters rising note, we've had one letter from a nearby neighbour who obviously is in support of the recommendation, which is to refuse the application and take enforcement action. So just very briefly, hopefully members have had a chance to go through the report. So the site is in the middle of Land Dock. So in terms of the levels, there's quite a change in levels throughout the site. The property itself is located on a corner site, corner of Summerland Close and Pantkelin Road. The application is made to retain a 1.95 metre fence, which has been constructed around the property. The fence has replaced part of the fence that was set further into the boundary of the property. So the fence line is broadly drawn along the line edged in red. So on the basis that the fence has been built, so members will be able to consider the impact of the fence. So as you can see, the fence which returns up to the property has been built along the curved frontage. So the fence in total is 21 metres along the road frontage, which we feel is of a significant length. So that's a view sort of looking down, and that's a view looking up. And then that's a view from the back, again with the side return. That's a view head on. Obviously, the representation we've received from the applicant has said that there are, many other fences in the area, which, we don't dispute that. There are often pockets of fencing in all estates. This is somewhat different because, particularly of what was there before, which, this is garden, obviously, nicely landscaped with rose bushes and planting, etc., etc. Obviously, from the planning point of view, we can't control the removal of that, but we can control what happens to that. This is quite a recent photo, just predated the fence going up, where I think it's actually before the house changed ownership. Really, the key issue we've got is the openness of this junction. Which is obviously assisted by the low-level landscaping and the fact that there's no close boundary to the road frontage. This is a particularly, we've got a slightly better shot that shows the existing and the proposed, the pre-development and the post-development together. Although I think those are in the photos which I can't get access to at the moment that have been shared, but from our point of view, it's resulted in a marked change to the openness and the character of the site. Obviously, the use of a fence is very, very harsh. Officers don't feel, for example, that if the fence was to be stained or to be slightly reduced in height, that it would make it acceptable. So we feel that we have given the applicant the opportunity to amend the scheme, possibly by setting the fence back, although it would have to be set back quite a way to make it acceptable, whereas to a point where it wouldn't be considered fronting onto the highway. Draw members' attention again to the relatively open aspect of the close. Quite a lot of open frontages, and where there are enclosures, these enclosures are very often hedgerow and low-level planting. So, so the recommendation is to refuse the application, and obviously, as the development is in place, to serve an enforcement notice to remove the fence and any resulting material from the land, or to reduce the fence to a height of not more than 1 metre above ground level. Just for members' information, the 1 metre above ground level would be what's considered a height which would be permitted development. So that is, you could build a fence adjacent to a highway up to 1 metre in height without the need for permission. So we always have to consider the fallback position of what could be permitted development. So again, it's just a dual recommendation to refuse the application and to authorise enforcement action. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ernest, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think this is a very straightforward case, and unlike the previous two applications we've had this evening, I think if members refer to page 173, the paragraph immediately below the particular photograph on 173, it's quite clear that new development should be sympathetic to the existing in terms of scale, massing, form, positioning, detailing, and materials, and also the relationship of the development to open spaces. Quite clearly, the officers are right on this, and I'm going to move refusal. I'm going to move we refuse the
Officers'
application.
recommendations.
The officer's recommendation. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Helen?
Can I second
Councillor
officers'
Can-
recommendations, please?
Yes, thank you very much. Is there anyone contrary to that? If so, speak now or forever. No, I see no hands. I see no one objecting to that. In that case, that officers' recommendations are carried, and that's it. Right, that, as far as I'm aware, I have no other items which are urgent under part 1, and I have no part 2. In which case, thank you all for your attendance, and we'll see what the next meet. Oh, Councillor Champion, you have your hand up for something.
Yeah. Could you apologise to Councillor Perry? I think you might have done at the time, but it really wasn't the right thing to say. And I know it is. But anyway,
I was immoderate in telling him to shut up. I should have asked him to be quiet, and I therefore apologise. But yes,
thank you.
I'm happy to apologise for becoming cross. Thank you very much. But I noticed it's been happening a number of times recently in local politics or in politics. Thank you. Right, moving on. Thank you everybody for your attendance, and see you next time. Bye.